Hello everyone, Caren Glasser here, and welcome to this episode of The Passion Point. This is a show where we interview Passionistas from around the world, and we find out how they are actually making a living doing what they love, and today is no exception. I'm really excited about our guest today. Having always had a desire to make the world a better place, Lucinda Curran is a solutions-focused, based entrepreneur that helps us with optimal wellness, attainable health. I mean, she is awesome. Everything that she touches helps us do better in our environment. And we've had a chance to get to know each other in the past several months, and I'm excited that she's on the show today. She's worked for many years as a teacher and sharing her passion for health and environmentalism with her students. She decided to embark on a new career in Chinese medicine. Working with adults to improve their health and empowering them with skills to manage it forever was a rewarding next step. Living in the inner city, Lucinda noticed her health decline. And while recovering in the hospital from back surgery, she decided it was time to study building biology. And I want to talk a little bit about that when we get on with you, because I'm not sure exactly what that is, and I'm sure that our listeners are not as well. So I want to ask you about that. And she had heard about it about 5 years prior, so I guess you didn't know what it was until 5 years prior as well. And being a health practitioner was definitely advantaged, as she had many remedies at her fingertips. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lucinda into the show. How are you doing today, Lucinda?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor, Caren. Thank you.
So, Lucinda, you have this amazing accent. Where are you actually talking to us from?
I always think it's funny. People say I've got an accent, and I don't have an accent. You guys do. I'm in Australia, so yeah, I've been born and bred here, and actually haven't been overseas. So yeah, it's just an Australian accent.
Well, one of these days we're going to have to get you over to the States, and then we can all talk funny to you, right? Because you seem to think we have the funny accent. So we're going to start the show by defining the word passion. Webster's dictionary says that passion is an intense, driving, or overmastering feeling or conviction. Would you agree, or do you have a different definition for passion?
I think that sounds right. I mean, it is just, for me, it's like I always use the word stepping into your light and just really knowing this is what it's all about and just following the path that's sort of laid out before you. It's kind of almost unintentional in a sense. It's what feels right. It's just burning. It's just part of everything. It's a brilliant feeling.
So let's talk about your passion. I mean, how did you get from, when you were young to where you are now? I'm not saying you're old, but to where you are now. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you started and how you ended up where you are right now.
Okay. When I was young, I wanted to do all sorts of things, and I often ask people on my radio show what's the first thing they ever wanted to do. Well, my answer to that question was be a gypsy. I just wanted to travel around and wear bright, colourful things and just be out and be a part of nature. All my life, I've done things for the environment. As a 6-year-old, I was writing petitions to the government and, collecting signatures and making signs in the local park about keeping it clean and all of that kind of thing. So it's always been really strong in me. And from there, you sort of go through high school, which is a bit of a muddly time, and I ended up doing early childhood teaching, which was fantastic because I sort of brought all of that side of it into the teaching, and I think it improved on the curriculum because that kind of stuff's not really there in what we're meant to teach. So that was fantastic. And moved down to Melbourne. So I moved about 1,000 k's from where I grew up, k's being kilometres, and realised that it was time to do something different. And I sat and pondered, what do I really want to do? I can do anything. What is it that I want to do? And I sat there and narrowed down the list of, the whole wide world of anythings down to psychology and Chinese medicine. And then I realised psychology was part of Chinese medicine. It's like, problem solved, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I studied that. I began practicing, and that's when I moved to the inner city. I actually got very sick in the inner city. The back surgery kind of coupled in with me developing chemical sensitivities, and that's what sort of came to the fore when I was in hospital. So studying the building biology then was a way to then get out there and prevent people from getting sick, and also then the Chinese medicine gives me a way to help people get well.
So let's talk, what is building biology? What exactly is that?
Building biology was actually developed in, I think it was the 1970s in Germany. Anton Schneider was the one who developed sort of the phrasing for it. But basically we're looking at our built environment as a living organism in a sense, and the way that it impacts on our health. So, you know, if you've got a building that's incredibly energy efficient, like what we're building these days, it's kind of like living in a sealed plastic bag. There's no air permeability, the water vapors can't get through, anything that off-gases inside your home like furniture, furnishings, things you bring in, all of that sort of gets stuck in your environment. And this is where we started seeing the development of conditions like sick building syndrome, which I'm sure more people have heard of than environmental sensitivities, but environmental sensitivities is the sort of words that I use for it because it's, I guess, it's a bit broader. So what we're doing is we're looking at, like I'll go into a home or a school or a workplace and I'll look at what's impacting on people's health or what is potentially impacting. So it might be the indoor air quality, it could be mold, it could be the electromagnetic fields from their smart meter or their cordless phone or that kind of thing, as well as any pollutions that might be in the environment that are being brought in, looking at the quality of their drinking water, all of that kind of stuff.
So when you decided to go down this path, this journey that you went on, did you just like make that decision and boom, you were just doing it, or what kind of challenges did you happen upon as you started going along this path, and what were some of the successes early on that said you were on the right path?
Well, I guess the biggest difficulty for me was getting started because, as I said, I developed the chemical sensitivities, or I think I've always had them, but they really hit sort of, you know, rock bottom point, the worst ever in that time just after hospital. I actually nearly died, and it was a really rough time health-wise. So one of the main problems or symptoms that people with chemical sensitivities has is brain fog. And that's like your head's all muzzy, you can't think, you can't function. And for me, going back to study when I was like that was incredibly difficult. But I kind of felt I had blinkers on like a horse. And if I was looking down my little tunnel vision, I could actually then focus on something. But if I kind of tried to broaden it out, I'd kind of spin out and get confused and not be able to keep up. So it's very difficult.
That sounds like a great tip, though, for our listeners, is that sometimes it may seem overwhelming when you don't have your blinders on and you're very general and looking at everything. I want to do everything rather than putting the blinders on. And so you discovered that worked for you.
Totally. And I actually run an environmental sensitivities boot camp, and that's one of the things I teach my group to do is, you know, find something every day and just hone in on it. You know, if it's a Sudoku or a crossword or whatever it is, focus on something where you're using your brain and you just have to concentrate completely. So that was a brilliant experience. And I found, in answer to the previous question, the more that I studied, the clearer my brain got. So the brain fog just dissipated. I mean, it did take a long time, and I was working on it in lots of other ways, but it was just phenomenal, the difference and the clarity that came with it.
So tell us a little, maybe some of your success stories. I'm sure that as people listening to you and saying, that sounds like something I might need to get some more information on. Tell us some success stories, people that you worked with, and how you basically changed their lives environmentally.
That's a great question because I guess there's so many aspects. So maybe starting with the building biology side of things, I had a call to go out to somebody's place who, she was a young girl, she was in her early 20s and she'd been sick for about 8-9 years and nobody could really work out what was going on. And it was just phenomenal. Like I walked into the place and went, okay, there's one really big problem here. They've got scented reeds and air fresheners in every single room, and they're a massive problem. They're made from fragrances. They don't get rid of the air problem. They add to the pollutants in the air, and then they actually coat your nasal passages so you can't smell properly. And you know, so that's a huge, huge issue in itself. So they had those all over the place. There was perfumes in each of the bathrooms, and then the other thing was they were in a multi-level building, like a home, that every level was concrete slab with slab heating, which they had on 24 hours a day. So the electromagnetic fields being emitted from that were absolutely enormous. And then to top it off, about a metre, so 3 foot behind where she was sitting at her desk, they had a Wi-Fi booster, so the extender to help get the Wi-Fi around their place. And the readings that I got from that with my meter were equivalent to standing right in front of a mobile phone tower. So she kind of was being bombarded by all these different levels. So, you know, I think the best experience was actually taking her room by room and going, okay, all these things in a box in the bin. You've got to get rid of all of them. It doesn't work for you.
That's awesome. And did she notice the difference almost immediately?
Yeah, and I guess the other key thing too was every time she was away from home, she felt better, and every time she came back, she felt worse. So it was a matter of cleaning up the things. That's one of the biggest keys that the home's a problem or a particular building's a problem. So that was fantastic.
And I think you and I actually chatted about this, about the fragrance thing. I know one of the things that I've done events all across the country, and one of the things that I've always told my speakers and the people that come, don't wear fragrance, because it makes a difference with the people that are around you. Don't wear fragrance. I mean, I don't even wear fragrance now when I get on an airplane for that very same reason. I love fragrance, but I'm totally aware of what it does to the other people around me. So would you agree?
Absolutely. Perfumes and fragrances, anything that says fragrance on it or parfum, is basically a cocktail of hundreds to potentially thousands of chemicals. Most of them, so 90% of them, haven't been tested for their safety, and none of them have been tested, or pretty much none of them have been tested for their synergistic actions. So if you look at the sorts of ingredients that they use things like formaldehyde and all sorts of really dangerous chemicals, so things that are lung irritants, skin irritants, things that are potentially or known carcinogens, so cancer causing, and you just put that mix together, and you sort of put a whole lot of people into a small space, like you said, like an aeroplane, and you know, your indoor air is absolutely abysmal from that.
So you've actually changed lives by doing this. I mean, you've changed the quality of life for people, which obviously, this is what we do. We live in our world, so to be able to change that quality of life has to be pretty powerful, knowing that you can do that. I'm totally impressed with you in that you have that ability, and I'm sure that our listeners are wondering, and we'll talk a little bit more as we get towards the end of our interview here, how they might be able to reach out to you and find out how they possibly can work with you or learn from you, or find out how to live is cleaner life the right word? I'm not sure what the right word would be.
Cleaner life can work, that's fine. I mean, I sort of look at, phrases like detoxing your environment and that kind of thing. So yeah, cleaner life would be definitely part of it. And I guess one of the ironies that I see where I live, because I'm still in a city, there are a lot of people who get their beautiful organic groceries and everything's organic that they eat, but then all of their personal care products and cleaning products are mainstream. Even fabrics that we wear can be a huge problem, and often synthetic fabrics, they need to use a fixative to set the dyes, the colours that they use in them, and often that's formaldehyde as well. So it's incredible when you start picking away at it, the amount of things that you uncover. And I think to start with, for people, it's very overwhelming, but I always look at just doing one thing at a time. And when it's time to replace that shampoo, you buy one that's safer, and just plod away at it, and bit by bit you get there.
So I like to ask all of our Passionistas, all of our people that come on and are following their passion, making a living, doing what they love, what do you tell people that are lost and find themselves, as I call them, accidental entrepreneurs, find themselves in a world where they've lost their job, or they don't like what they're doing? Maybe they have a job, but they don't like their job, and they just don't know how to take that next step. And we listen to the Secret or Think and Grow Rich, and all of these things would have us believe that all we have to do is think it, and it's going to happen. How does that make you feel when you hear that?
I love the concept of that, but I don't think you can just imagine something and it becomes a reality. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. I found there's a lot more action you need to put into it. And I guess it was like when I got to the point where I realized I needed to do something different from teaching, just to sit there and have peace with the moment that, oh my goodness, you can do anything in the whole wide world, which for me was overwhelming for a little while, because it's just like I could do anything. But then finding, sitting with it for long enough, giving yourself time and space to work through that, and go, well, what would I like to do? What have I always wanted to do? Because I remembered, when I was about 18 saying, if ever I decide to stop teaching, I'm going to do something in the healing field. I was already making products, based on essential oils, using aromatherapy for friends and family. So I was like, I really want to do that. And then I remembered, the only thing that had helped with another health condition that I'd had was acupuncture and Chinese herbs. So it's like, well, that's it. That's what I want to do. So really just, I think, sitting with it and finding really digging deep. And I think thinking back, one of my, best tips is to think back to when you were a lot younger, before life got distracting, before, the extraneous things were sort of layered on top of you and you kind of felt, I have to do this, this is what I'm meant to do. What did you want to do? And really digging deep and finding that, connecting with it, and then just going for it.
So it's like an exercise almost. I mean, you literally sat down and did you write down all these ideas? Did you talk them? How did you narrow it down? I mean, really, I know that I could sit here and say I can come up with thousands of things that I'd like to do. How did you narrow it down? Because I know that's a challenge.
I guess I have to remember back. That was a while ago. I do a lot of thinking, and I tend to think very quickly, so I kind of process a little bit faster than many people. So that was part of it. I mean, I do sit and think and have quiet time to do that. But the other thing I really love doing is mind mapping or brainstorming even. So my mother's one of my best brainstorming friends. She's in her 80s now, and we still have conversations. It's like, right, we need to brainstorm. And we just bounce back and forth and just develop and play with ideas. So that would have been part of it. And then, just pulling out a big piece of paper. Like I've got, really nice big scrapbooks, so you open them up, you've got loads of space, and I love colour. So just writing down stuff and then, narrowing it down, what felt right, what's a viable profession, what sort of study do I need to do? Because it was a big thing to, lose the stability of a job I'd been in for a very long time and go back to full-time study, knowing that I had no financial assistance. I had to work and study and all of that. And honestly, although it was really difficult, having the courage to do that has changed my life completely, and I'm so happy I did it.
And that's just so powerful what you just said, having the courage to do it. And I really think that that's probably the most important word in the dictionary, that we as human beings sometimes just can't muster up that courage to take that risk, to take that next step. And that's a great tip for our listeners. Sometimes you just have to muster up the courage and just do it. As Nike says, just do it. Go and do it. And then it doesn't mean you're going to have success the next day. It means that you're going to work and you're going to work on things, and then maybe take 2 steps backwards and do something a little bit different until you get to where you need to be. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing I did, knowing that I was going to stop the income and I had to pay for my course up front and all of that kind of thing, I actually worked out the finances. So I actually had to sell where I was living. I had to buy somewhere that I could afford to pay for, and then use the difference to, fund it all and, move out far enough and cope with the travel to and from. Like, I had to plan it all out, so it just worked. And it was difficult, but it was so worth it.
And you planned it out, and it worked. I mean, so again, what you're saying is when you put your entire being into it and you are courageous and you take that risk and you plan the whole thing out, there's a huge likelihood that you're going to be successful in that endeavor that you're doing. And the one thing that I didn't hear you mention in terms of deciding what you want to do, would you not agree that we have to make sure that whatever we do go into, there's actually a need for it?
Yes. Yeah, no, I sort of did mean that when I said, making sure it was a viable profession. So, yeah, making sure that there would be people doing it. I mean, having said that, Chinese medicine, it's growing here, but it's still pretty small. And then even building biology, like in the whole country, we've got less than 30, probably less than 20 qualified building biologists. So, it's tiny, but there's a need for it. I mean, for me, I can't see myself doing anything else, because I have this information, I've suffered it, and I need to make sure nobody else does. So, that's awesome. The passion.
Yeah, that's awesome. So every week I like to mention a quote, because I like quotes. It starts my day in the morning. Sometimes I'll do a quote in the evening. I'm all about social media. I put those quotes out. And it's really more for me than it is for anybody else. It's like putting that that intention out there. So today I'd like to share a quote, and then if you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share with us, I'd love to hear that as well. So today's quote from me is, and this is from T. Alan Armstrong, and the quote is this: "If there is no passion in your life, then have you really lived? Find your passion, whatever it may be, become it, and let it become you, and you will find great things happen for you, to you, and because of you." So this is a quote about passion, and I love that. I love the idea that you become it. What quote would you like to share with us today?
I'm going to be a bit naughty and quote myself, if that's okay.
Please do.
I actually wrote this, and it's in my book. Yep, there you go. And I actually wrote this while I was studying Chinese medicine, so it was actually from that time. So the only thing that you can do about the future is to make the present as wonderful as possible.
Love that. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned your book. Why don't you put it back up there? For those of you who are interested in finding out more about Lucinda and getting her book, let's just get that title up there. Put it back up so we can see it. It's Change Your Life.
Change Your Life.
And where can they get it?
That's available on Amazon as well as from my website.
Awesome. And your website is?
ecohealthsolutions.com.au.
And so our listeners, you're going to be able to see this directly down below. All the information in terms of how you can reach Lucinda, her website and her book. And I encourage you to reach out to Lucinda. She's here to help. She's here to help you feel better and to live better. And Lucinda, you know how I feel about you. We've had some fun getting to know each other, and I'm just really pleased that you were able to come on today and to share your passion with all of our listeners. Are there any last-minute things that you'd like to share with our listeners before we say goodbye?
Thank you so much. I guess what I'd really love listeners to just really embrace is that you can do whatever you want to do. Anything is possible, and it's just a matter of working out what it is that you really feel is the right path for you and going with it, because you can do anything.
Great message. Great message. Well, Lucinda, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. You're on the other side of the world for us and us here in the States. And I know it's morning time for you. It's late afternoon for us. And I just really want to thank you for being with us today. And I want to thank our viewers, because we know that you have many, many things that you can be doing at this time, and you chose to spend it with us. And for that, I am eternally grateful, and I appreciate you so much. And as always, go out and have a great day, and we'll see you next time on The Passion Point. Goodbye, everyone.